Absolute Chaos. My name is Shana and I am your host today. We have here with us Kat, and I'm so super excited. She's a big deal. If you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do, all of that.
Yeah, hey Shana. Oh my gosh. Thank you, first of all, for having me. I just love
Yes.
coming on the different shows, and yours is so fun and just fun to listen to and fun to watch as a whole. So I'm
Oh,
excited to
thank
be
you.
here. Thank you. Um, so I started an Instagram account called No Wine in the Carpool Line. I guess it was nothing I did was planned. None of this was planned. Like my whole journey through like coming out with my sobriety wasn't planned. Do you want me just to start from like the beginning?
Yeah, just go for it.
Okay, so let's start with what led me to talking to you today, and that's the very beginning. I want to preface it that I do have to always honor my husband in this way. I've been married to my wonderful husband Matt for 12 years this year, so I do want to say that because I speak about my first marriage in my recovery journey, which is not my current husband Matt. So
Right.
I just need to be clear that I have a wonderfully supportive partner who I cherish and adore and want to honor his feelings completely before I begin. So that said, my journey started. I was in my first marriage to this great guy. We dated for a couple years, got married at 23, right out of college, and quickly had three children. And during that time, I was young 20s with three little kids, and I became really overwhelmed. Mommy wine culture wasn't a thing yet. This was 14 years ago. So there was no mommy wine culture. No one was talking about day drinking. No one was going really to play dates and openly drinking much. I mean, we just weren't doing that. I'm 45 now, so I can look back on this and say we absolutely weren't. And I was one of these moms. I was one of these stroller moms, play date moms, like going to dance class, music class, whatever the fuck class, so that you can keep these kids busy and maintain your sanity at the same time. But I wasn't. I was keeping the kids busy, and I loved my life as a mom. I absolutely did. But behind the scenes, my marriage was falling apart through nothing that had to do with children. Just between my husband and me, things weren't they weren't going to work out, and I was having a hard time like acknowledging that, like absolutely thinking, oh my God, like I'm gonna end up divorced, I think. Like this man doesn't want to be married to me, I can tell. And we were having a hard time having those honest conversations of, is this what's happening? We'd been married for 7 or 8 years when my problem started. And there just wasn't a lot. I didn't confide in him. I didn't talk to him. I didn't tell him what I was doing or how I was feeling because I was already afraid he was going to leave me, and I didn't want him to leave me. And it wasn't even so much about me loving him so much that he couldn't leave me. It was that I was a stay-at-home mom with three children. What the fuck was I going to do if this man walked and took my kids like he was promising he was going to do? I mean, I had options. But nothing was what I wanted. I wanted to have my intact family, and this was not the dream. I didn't, grow up thinking this. This was not what I had planned. So it all fell apart just spectacularly. I remained in denial for 18 months. I drank myself almost to death. I ended up in the hospital many, many times, pancreatitis, bad falls. Um, Doctors telling me if you continue like this, you're going to die, and me thinking they were crazy. Like surely not me. Like you don't know. No, 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 no. It's not really that bad. And it was that bad. For some reason I really couldn't grasp it. I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I was wearing pearls and a Lily Pulitzer and Prada shoes and carrying a fucking Prada bag with kids in private school, and no one that I knew was an alcoholic, well, that I knew. So I couldn't tell anyone what I was, and I was so busy fronting on everything that I thought I was supposed to be and should be and needed to be for my society, for the place that I had given myself in my life, that I was completely ignoring who I was and what was actually going on in my life, and that it was all just a total bullshit front. And none of that was a representation of anything but fear and anxiety and laying in bed at night by myself. I might add, my husband traveled a great deal for work, so I was alone doing this. And as I was more alone, the drinks became more and more. And then when my husband was in town, I just kept doing it, but now I was hiding it because he couldn't know what I was doing. So during that time, he really got fed up and he said, if you can't kick this, then we're leaving you. And I couldn't, and they did. And I ended up alone, in a very, very desperate situation. My parents were saying, you got to do this. We don't know what the hell else to tell you. We've sent you to rehabs. You've done inpatient, you've done outpatient. You have every therapist, you have every advantage. What do you fucking need to get sober? And I didn't know, right?
And can we talk about this for a second real quick? Because when you're
Please.
saying this right now, what I'm actually thinking is like right now where we are today, like sometimes men have kids, sometimes the women have the kids. It's not such a big deal, but like 14 years ago, right? It wasn't so normal for a man to leave and take the kids, right?
It was completely unheard of. And I want to be clear that I was not a danger or a threat to my children. This was,
Right.
and actually, no, maybe I was. I mean, they were asleep in their beds and I was drinking myself to sleep every single night. That's dangerous. No one should do that. So let me back that up. I'm going to own that. I was a danger in that sense. What I was not doing was reckless, crazy shit to actively try
Right.
to put my kids in danger. But my husband was done, and that was a threat to me. Was, if you don't fix this, I'm going to take them and leave. And part of my greater fear of that was not just being away from my children. I was a stay-at-home mom. They were my entire life.
Right. You're like, what do I do
Well,
now?
right.
Like, what am I?
But would like what people acted, and this is part of the reason that I stayed silent in my recovery for so long. I was sober for 7 years before I came out in public as sober. Everybody knew I didn't drink, but I didn't start my Instagram account or start public speaking or any of this for 7 years. And this is why, Shana, you just said it. This is why. This is why. It was because I was a mother alcoholic. I was a woman alcoholic, and my husband successfully took my children from me. Now, I didn't put up a fight. I was in rehab. I was in rehab. There was nothing that I could do. What's the judge going to say?
Right.
So, Catherine, on your days, they'll come and sleep with you where? Like in the center? What's this going to look like? I mean, I needed to take a break, and that was
Right.
because of what I had done, essentially to myself and to my family through my disease. But
But that
that,
also adds to the feeling of like failure, which adds to like the continuing cycle of drinking. It's
absolutely.
so hard to
Hearing you
explain
say
to
this is
people.
so validating. Just hearing you say that is so validating, because that's exactly what it was. And the worse you felt, the more you drank. And then he's telling you literally on the phone, you're never going to be with these kids again. I'm going to make sure you wait until I tell everybody what you said or did. Some of it was true, some of it wasn't. He made a lot of shit up. You know why? Because he could. Because he could. Because who's going to believe me? I'm drinking, right? Half the stuff that I say, I think, but I'm not sure. Is that really happened? No, some of these things actually did, and they were really fucked. And so, I'm working my way out of a hole already. You know what I mean? And I don't think that I'm alone in that. I think that being the
No.
mom, and 14 years ago, no, I was the only woman alcoholic that I knew 14 years ago. And I hid in that shame, and I ended up getting divorced, and he took my children. There was an 18-month custody battle. It was absolutely gruesome, wreckage everywhere. It took me years to get over some of that anger. I'm not over it still, a lot of it. I have serious, um, I'm pissed still about some things.
Yeah.
But I don't, again, I don't think that I'm alone in that either. But my husband left and he took the children, and it was a tough road back, to recovery and to life again. It was something that I have said the whole time, since I got sober. Actually, it was 11 years last week. And
Yay.
thanks. It's so, I gotta say, it's way easier after the first couple of years. It's like you don't even think about it anymore. So it's like, I mean,
Right.
I didn't even post it online that it was my 11-year anniversary. I did it in a story because I'm like, for me, I'm like, it's so easy for me now. I don't need to work. You know what I mean? The fight was those first 2 years, but
That's the good part though, that it gets better even because I thought at 1 year, like this is what life is gonna be like.
same.
No, like the first 3 years, it just kept getting better and better and better. And now it's kind of like nothing.
You did it. Yeah, you're like,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yes.
have that same experience. Yeah. Let's see what ended up, how did I, okay. So how I got here with you today is it was, well, 3 years ago now, but I was like rolling around in this bed behind me. Actually, this is the quietest room in our house. It's like a
Okay.
wing off of the side. So no, I know it's my bed in the background. It's so weird, but it's quiet. And I have 5 kids. So
It's
there you go.
made.
Right. So it's made. It's made. The sheets are clean too. Anyway, yeah, I was rolling around in this bed. It was like 3 in the morning, and I had heard some moms talking about me in the carpool line. Our kids were all in the same private school. And it was just a nasty exchange that I was hearing. And I was like, man, this sucks. Like they're talking about me, but they're not really right. Like some of the things they were saying were true, some of them weren't. And I was so amazed that anybody would care so much about anybody else to be smack talking in a pickup line. Like, grow up. But nevertheless, it happened. Bitch, I was 42 when this happened. Like, seriously, you're still on this? I can't. Anyway, like, I'm so sorry for them. Seriously, truly, I really am. I pray for folks like that because how exhausting. I think that's another thing about
Yeah.
sobriety too, is like you just don't you a lot of this stuff you're able to brush off a little bit more easily.
Right.
Not those big things, but the smaller things. But yeah, I was ruminating about how hearing those ladies talk about me and my feelings were hurt. And I was like, man, I've been sober at the time. I had been sober for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Gosh, I guess it's been 4 years since I started my Insta. Um, why am I like so afraid to, I should be proud of this. And I'm tired of being ashamed of being sober because and as elementary as this seems, I was so um, ready to just be okay with being sober and to tell people like it was really, really hard for me to get sober. And I felt so stupid doing it. And I felt like I was the only mom. And I just felt like a fool and a loser the whole time that I was trying to get it done. And I realized, like, no, I'm not going to roll around in my bed at night and woe is me that no, I can't let anybody know that this was. I'm going to start this Instagram account and tell everybody this is what happened to me. This is how I wish I had handled it and I didn't. And I'm going to tell you every single story of my entire life, starting from before I started my fight with addiction until today. And then I'm going to do it again tomorrow. And I'm going to do it every fucking day until I don't have anything else to say because the disease is so deadly and it's so shameful and there's so much fear in it that if I don't do something like that, if you don't have your podcast, if people are afraid to speak out, women are going to die, and they do, and and they hate themselves all the way until they finally either literally die or just die to the point where they're just like fuck this, it's just whatever it is, and they just live a life of depression and sadness because it's not necessary. I just
Right.
yeah, yeah, and I think
I
you feel the
had
same way.
no idea until Instagram, like sober Instagram, that so many people had a story just like mine. And I worked in treatment for a super long time. And I would see people come in and get sober, and then I wouldn't really be able to see them after because there's like that time frame, right? That you can't speak to them. And like some of them would die, and some of them would be like doing really great. And you didn't really ever get to see, well, like, how do I do this? And like, what do I do? Like, okay, after 30 days, like,
What's
which,
the real? That's what women
yeah,
need.
what
What's the real
happens?
real? We can read the big book. We can look at the therapy websites. We can
Yes.
do all the things. But let me see how people are living their lives like this. How the fuck are you doing it?
Yeah.
That's what we need to know. Yeah.
Like, what do you do when everything is burning down and you can't drink alcohol? What do you do with big feelings? Where do they go? Like, yeah. And it's the craziest thing because that was one of the most healing things in my journey was like seeing so many people that have gone through something like it, or you know what I mean, or the same thing.
Yeah, I do too. I think that it's helped me to feel less crazy, honestly. I
Yeah.
so much of it you just feel like you say, controlled chaos. And I just knowing that other people have gone through it and are going through it is really helpful because I mean, some of us didn't have family members that have ever suffered with addiction. And so they think you're crazy. Like my family literally thought that I was crazy. They sent me no shit. This is a true story. I think I wrote about this in the book. I'm not positive. I don't know. It might have gotten cut too. My parents literally put me in a mental institution for 2 weeks because
Yeah.
they thought that I must be crazy. And I was like, I'm not crazy. Can somebody please listen to me?
Can somebody
Let me
please
tell you,
help
this
me?
was 14 years ago. So let me tell you, the landscape of recovery was so different than it is now. How long? Tell me about your recovery journey. Tell me, like, sorry, I,
No, I took a really long time to get sober. I tried for years and years. I worked in treatment thinking that would like save me. Like all these people know everything and it's a super great famous treatment, so it's got to have the best people. And I ended up having a head full of knowledge and a belly full of liquor. And I would always go like weeks and weeks on these like benders, and then I would get sober. I'd spend like the weekend in my bed detoxing, shaking, whatever. I went to the hospital all the time to detox. I ended up having seizures. It was it was just crazy how many times that I tried to get sober. My parents sent me to treatment for 6 months, like a religious treatment, and I came back and drank a week later. But speaking of like family not really understanding, like they sent me to treatment and took my 2 kids while I was in treatment for 6 months. And I remember coming back from treatment and everybody was just like, okay, now if you drink, just make sure you do it in moderation, okay? Like don't fuck it up this time. And I'm like, great, because that gives me a reason to say, okay, I'm just gonna drink these few drinks and then I'm gonna go home and drink the rest of the bottle. You ain't gonna see it, right? But it
right?
was like my pass to drink was like, oh, they think I'm fine to just drink a few drinks now. Like they have no idea what alcoholism even is or what that looks like or what that means, right? They don't know. So
Yeah.
it was almost like I would get
I would have done the
excited.
same thing. I'm just saying, I would have done the same thing if anybody thought when I came
Right.
home from my multiple attempts at residential rehab, if anyone else that I was coming home to thought that I could drink like just a little, I would have been doing it since the moment I got it. What the fuck are you talking about? I mean, horrible. And I'm so sorry that happened because it prolonged your disease. But I would, let me tell you, you're not alone. I would have taken full advantage of that opportunity
And
myself.
I was probably already drinking in secret
Yeah,
anyways.
yeah, for
I was
sure.
just saying that like people really didn't understand. It was almost like you're going to rehab to learn to like sit down, like
Yeah.
slow down. And like that didn't ever work. There never was a slow down button for me. And I from the time I was like old enough to be alone or like living alone, which I had my first daughter at 16, 17. So I lived with her dad. As soon as no one was like watching me or in
Yeah.
charge of me, I was drinking in the morning. Like there never was. People say, yeah, like I knew I had a problem when I started drinking in the morning. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I always had a problem, like from the time I started drinking and like
Wow.
having kids young. And I love my kids so much and I wanted them. I have 3 girls and it's been a crazy journey, but it's so hard, and I was a single mom, and it just like drinking was just how I just shut my mind up and just kind of quieted everything, and I never really understood. I would go to rehab and be the best girl in the rehab, the
Same.
quiet one, the happy one, and I just would come right home and drink. Like
Yeah,
I
same.
really thought I would never get it, you
Me
know?
too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really
really
thought that
thought
too.
not possible.
And it was so easy. I remember I was in one rehab and I was happy. Like you said, I was always, the therapists were always like, she's my mother and I've always had a very difficult relationship. And my dad was still alive when I was in rehab. And um, they were married for like, gosh, almost 50 years when my dad died. But we were having a hard time getting past like, I guess, choice versus um, not a choice. And people couldn't understand it. And I truly couldn't get it up either. I could not. And I thought, this is easy for me in rehab. I like being here.
Yeah.
I'm safe here. And she'd say, well, you have a choice to do that out of rehab. But for some reason I didn't. I could, it wasn't a choice. And every time that I was in rehab, these therapists would say, she's so pleasant and she works out every day. And well, no shit. I was doing that at home. Teach me how to do this shit at home. I got to get home, but I could never do it.
But what was it that finally helped you get sober? Like, what
It's
was
hard.
the change? Or do you even know?
I
Do
think
you know?
that's such a good question. And do you even know? I think it's pretty harsh, and I think it's twofold. So thanks for asking. What finally got helped me get sober is, so my ex-husband had very successfully taken my children. I put up no fight. I had no fight because I was in rehab. There's nothing, or on my way to rehab. I was a hopeless drunk at the time. There was nothing that I could do. So he had successfully gotten them. And while I was in rehab, as a chance encounter, I met who would become 6 months later my husband, my current husband of 12 years, Matt. And he had grown up with, we randomly met in a bookstore. I prefaced it with, he asked me out, and I prefaced it with, listen, I'm actively currently in rehab. I have 3 children who my ex-husband has right now. I'm an alcoholic. I can't get sober. And this is like my last shot here in rehab. So if you still want to take me out for some hot chocolate after hearing all of that, you come from way more fucked up than what I'm dishing out. And he was like, yeah, I definitely do. And I would love to take you out. So he did. And while I was in rehab, was served with divorce papers from my ex-husband, which was actually great. People think it's really harsh. It's not. It was good. I had a whole community around me. I needed that. I needed that support because, like we said, when we're there, we're okay. It's when we leave that we have
Yeah.
the problem. So, when I was getting out of rehab, my ex-husband, our house had sold. My ex-husband had moved and taken my children, and I assumed that I would be going back to where they were. When I found out from my mom and my dad was sort of played second fiddle to my mom. She was in charge. She said, no, you're not welcome here. You may not come here. You're going to go to a halfway house. And I said, the fuck I am. The fuck I am. I was coming out of one of the best rehabs in the country. If I'm not with people that I identify with, I'm not going to fucking make it, man. You have to be with people that you see yourself, you want to be like them, or you're like them already, or you identify with them in some way. Send me to fucking Philadelphia and put me in a halfway house with 7 people that I don't know who are getting ready to work jobs that I've never even fucking heard of. What are you talking about? So this was a huge problem. You can still hear it in my voice. This is 12 years later, and I'm still this rageful because she was so fucking wrong. And I have had the opportunity to speak on that. It didn't go well. That didn't go well either. But anyway, yeah, so I had no choices. I was fucking stuck. I called my dad and I was like, what are you going to do about this? You have to help me. And he was like, listen, buddy, I've been helping you this whole time. I don't know what to do. Like, you help me. And so I told this man, Matt, that I met, he had a house in St. Louis, and my ex-husband was moving my children to Kansas City. So he was like, I'm in residency in St. Louis and you're welcome to live there and drive to your kids. Like, whatever you need to do, I'll support you no matter what. No funny business. It's fine, whatever. And I did that. And 6 months later, I married the man, and I've been married to him now for 12 years. And we have 2 more children to our pack. But where was the initial question? What did you?
How did you get sober?
Right.
But I
So that's
think
how.
I kind of.
That's how. It was my husband, Matt. After I left rehab and came to St. Louis and moved in with my now husband, Matt, I stumbled a few times. There would be times when I would get custody stuff from my ex-husband in the mail, and my husband would be off at, Matt would be our boyfriend, whatever the hell he was, would be off at the hospital doing his actual job. And I would go to the liquor store and get a 5th of whiskey, drink till I passed out, cried enough, passed out again. He comes home 36 hours later. Here's Catherine. That happened several times. It wasn't always smooth sailing, but Matt came from a family where he had a family member who struggled in even a more severe capacity than I. And so every time that I did that, my husband, the man who knew all the baggage that I came with, this wonderful angel on earth, would say, this is not the way you're going to go down. This is, I love you. And I would cry and say, you're going to leave me. I know you're going to leave me. Why would you? And he would say, I don't know why you're saying that. Why are you saying that? Well, that's my experience. Like, no one's going to love me through this or help me through. Like, my parents tried. My ex-husband didn't. He was looking for a way out anyway, and this was a really easy way
Right.
out. Who wouldn't want to divorce a crazy alcoholic? Shit, I would. So that was easy for him. But this man didn't do that. And every time I messed up and really, really needed help, he helped me. He and my dad teamed up together and said, I think that she can do this. I really do think she can do it. I don't think that this is impossible. And together, we did it. And Matt and my dad and I came up with like a daily schedule for me, and I kept it. And just little by little, every single day, having my husband come home and be like, babe, you stayed sober today. That's so
Yeah.
amazing. Like, holy cow, you got hit with this today. This happened today, and you still stayed sober. What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Let's go. Let's plan what we're going to do with the kids next. Or let's go to a
Right.
special dinner. Or, how many miles did you? I was a long distance runner. How many miles did you run today? Tell me about it. Do you want to go on a walk? Like everything. He was just there. He was just there, and he never quit. And he saw some really tough shit, and
I
he
have
was
to
still
tell
never
you
quit.
this. This makes me want to cry. So, I met my husband when I had moved back from Texas. I had like a freaking diagnosis of liver failure, early liver failure. And I was
Yeah.
like, my daughter's dad had just passed away. And I was like, listen,
Oh,
like, if I'm gonna not be able to get sober and this is what's going down, like I just need to move home. So like my kids have like my parents, my family, whatever. Like I had just like kind of given up, packed
yeah,
everything in my little car and moved back to my shitty, shitty hometown that I swore I was never coming back to. I live in the middle of nowhere in Michigan
really.
in the Upper Peninsula. I hate it with my whole heart. Now I love it. But I moved here just like truthfully, just to like give up and make sure my
Yeah.
kids had somebody. And
Wow.
I ended up having a friend talk me into going to an AA meeting because he was like, I got, I'll bring you for food beforehand. And I was like, I've been doing AA for the last 20 freaking years. It hasn't done anything. I'm not going. I was like, but food, like dinner, okay, I'll go, whatever. And I went with him and I ended up meeting who is my husband now
Wow.
there. And he was like 8 months sober. He was living in sober living, and we had met when I was super young. Like we went to like school together but didn't really know each other, so we just like kind of caught up and talked and whatever. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm just one of those people who's never going to be able to get it, like I don't know
Right.
what's wrong. And he was like, why would you say that? Like, have you ever tried and like this medication? And I ended up taking this medication for a few months that he had tried before, and really it ended up that like I really think love is really part of something that's missing in people that go through this. And I don't know if it's like self love or like love from maybe your parents or trauma stuff that you've gone through, but I feel like the relationship that was actually not toxic for the first time in my whole entire life, and having somebody that was like a partner all of a sudden, and like I did a lot for him, he did a lot for me, and it was just like we just like worked together, and that was it. Like I think when we met my credit score was like 250. And I was like, we're gonna get a house, and he was like, what? Like with what?
Right.
And we had a house and we're married, and like he had custody back of his kids, and my kids were finally in a good place, like all these things within like 6 months. And they say don't do any of that stuff when you first get sober, but that's like almost the reason that I got sober.
Listen, I agree with
Medication
that.
took my mind, it gave me like a little bit of a reprieve from so many cravings, right?
Yeah.
But like having somebody love you no matter what you do, as crazy as that sounds, is like, okay, I I am worth it, right? Like I am worth it regardless of what my stupid actions are and I can't even figure them out. Somebody loves me for me.
Yeah, that was it for me too. Exactly. The way that you're saying it is perfect. Yeah, you needed to know that you were even worthy of the saving. I mean,
Ah,
and I think it's rare. I mean, unfortunately, I do think the love component is such a big one. And A lot of people don't have it. I mean, I didn't when I went through my like downfall with alcoholism, the one like that took everything from me, the major ending. Um, I didn't think that there was. I thought that I deserved it for sure. I knew that I deserved it. I didn't blame anyone for what happened, but I hated a lot of people, and um, I I just thought I was bad. Like I thought I was a bad person, a bad woman, just a bad egg that it would probably
Yeah.
just be better if I just weren't around at all because that everybody will be better without me. That was like the feedback that I was giving myself all the time. And then when there was someone that stepped in that was like, no, you can do this. I know you can do this. That was just a game changer for me. And I think that sometimes when people don't have that, man,
Right.
what a toll it takes.
It does. And I think like support comes in different ways, right? And relationships don't always work out. And I'm very lucky and you're very lucky
Same.
obviously
We're
that
we're
it
exceptions
did.
to the rule. Although actually, I do have to say, Shayna, that one of my very best friends in the whole world started her relationship with her husband when she was like 3 weeks
Yeah.
sober too. So, and
I
he's not
don't
a
know.
sober. Don't
There
even
was
put it.
something there was just something about it. Like the things that he was lacking, I was super good at. The things that I was lacking, he was super good at. And we just kind of like helped each other and like really like I trusted him. My ex-husband was like always cheating, always doing something right, and I was like so in love. So I think I always felt like I'm just not good enough, right? And
Yeah,
if I drink more, then I just won't have to continue thinking that.
or feeling it as much. Yeah,
Yes, and
it leaves it numb.
yeah,
Yeah,
and somehow it was like a habit. It just that
yeah,
I couldn't get rid of, right?
yeah,
And I don't know, it did. It changed a lot. So I think it's funny that so many of us get sober and it's like, well, what finally clicked? And it's like, well, this and this and this.
yeah,
And I guess it's a God thing, right? Like it's like all of a sudden, and a little bit of surrender too. Like I got nothing. Like I don't know what the hell I'm doing
yeah.
anymore.
Same. I mean, I knew. I mean, my surrender. Everybody kept saying it's going to get worse, and I was like, it's not going to get worse. It can't get any worse. And it did. And then, like that actual surrender, I always wondered if there would be one and like what it would feel like. I really honestly didn't believe it. I didn't believe that I would ever feel like I could surrender to it because I needed it so much. And when I finally did, I was like, oh shit, I'm done. Oh my God, this is it. Like I would literally rather die than drink again. And I think I'm going to. Like something in me knew, like I would. Yeah, and it was a full on like, all right, fuck it. Just do it. Yeah. And the first couple years were hard, but after that it just became normal. What do you think? When did you start all of your like speaking out with everything that you've been through?
Probably about a year ago, and that was at around 2 years. And I guess I had a lot of shame around not so much my alcoholism because, like, I was a complete, can you see me? All right, they'll have to cut that out. Somebody was trying to call. My service works so much better on my phone. But I think that I wasn't so much scared of like people knowing of my alcoholism because I was not the girl carrying around Prada anything. I was a shit show.
Right.
And it was very clear to everyone. Like I had like slashed somebody's tires that lived like next door to me because she was sleeping with my husband. Like I was out there, right? Like I
And
was
that sounds fair though. I
I was
probably
out
would have done the
there.
same thing. I've done not I
I
didn't
was
do
out there.
vehicle damage, but physical I did.
I'm just saying, like, I live in a real small town and I was from here, right? He was not. So every single thing that he
Wow.
did was like in my ear, right? And I was like, all
Yeah.
right, wait a minute. Wait. wait till you go to sleep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So like nothing was quiet. And then I moved away for like 10 years, and I did a lot of pretending I was sober because I worked in treatment, right? So a lot of people didn't know me, really know me, who thought they knew me. So
Wow.
when I was deciding to come out and talk about it, it was like, now I have to face all these people who are like, big in the sober world and treatment and all this stuff. And they thought I was sober until I was crazy and quit slash got fired, right? And now I have to kind of face that, right? Because there's a little bit of a mix between like podcasts and treatment centers and all that stuff. So I had a minute where I just started like telling my story, and then I started talking to people again from back then, and like it is what it is. People relapse, they lie. It's not an easy thing. But now I've really realized that that lying really kept me sick, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because then I felt even more bad about who I was, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. It kept me sick too. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was probably the worst part.
Yeah, so once I got to around like a year, and I started like really like things would happen, and I would be like, I'm really, really sad. I'm really, really depressed. I don't want to drink. Like there
Same.
was there was a few times where I was actually like, I want to be able to want to drink because I'm so mad, and I just want that like
Relief.
relief, and I just do not want that life anymore. I don't have it in me. Like, I just don't. My life was so bad then, it's so good now. And the fact that I wanted at one point, because things got pretty bad between like me and my oldest daughter, right? Like, they always wanted me to get sober. They were my best little friends. But once I got sober, things changed, and they were like teenagers, and you go through so much at that time, and we had a lot of hard times. So when I started going through that with her, it was like, so I get sober and you're going to take like the thing I care about the most in the whole world, God, like what?
Yeah.
um so there was a time where I really was, and it was over this last year, where I was like, I wish I could just drink. Like, I'm so depressed, I'm so sad, and it's just not there anymore. And what I realized is like, regardless of what other people do, as long as I'm doing the right thing, I just have to keep doing the right thing and living my best life. Like, I can't count on anyone to always be perfect and not go through their own shit. And she was there for me through 20 years of my bullshit. So if I have to put up with a year or two of hers, then hey.
Right.
But it's hard as a mom, right?
Yeah, it's so hard as a mom. I think that that's exactly what it is. Is being a mom is not the same as being a dad, and there are different expectations of moms, and we put them on ourselves too. So, I mean, how much of the shit that you said in your head to yourself, if you said it out loud, or if your husband heard someone saying that to you, if my husband heard some of the stuff that I was saying to myself, that if he heard someone saying that to me, he would want to kill them. So why are you saying that to yourself? Like, it's just self-imposed torture. And I think once I stopped doing that, it really helped too. Just once I
Yeah.
started negative talk and started to learn to stop it. And that took time too, because gosh, when you're in pain, you want to drink, and it's just like, I can't do this. But if you can get through those moments, I agree. I started having times when I'd be like, oh, I should feel like I want to drink right now, but I don't. And I think after like when I hit my longest stint, when I hit like just over a year, I was
Hmm.
like, I knew, okay, I'm probably never going to drink again because now I can't, because now I'm so excited. Like I didn't want to reverse any of the number was so
Mhm.
important to me that I was like, I don't want to reverse any progress. I did it. I did a year because I always thought I would never get to it. And then after that, it just becomes easier. But yeah, I identify with that a lot.
I really love that. I actually quit counting in the very beginning. It was actually this year that I like went back and looked through all my messages and figured out
Whoa.
like my exact like date and everything. And it was because I had gotten to 3 months like so many times I couldn't even count.
Same. Yeah, same.
And then I would have to give that all up. And then finally I was like, wait, why? Like,
Yeah.
why I like mess up once and then I like beat myself up so bad. And it's like, I'm not doing that anymore. So I completely just quit
I
counting
love that.
and just like let it go. And then now so many people would start asking me, like, what's your sober date? And obviously I had like a roundabout, but
Yeah.
I actually went back and figured it out this year. And so now I have a bracelet that says it. Like, I'm proud of it, but there was a while where I was like, absolutely not. Am I like
Yeah.
beating myself up like that anymore? Because
I like that. I think that's totally true. It took me 7 years to go back and look at anything that I had written from when I was drinking, any of the journals. No, it's really hard. You don't want to read those texts and look at that stuff because, like, every time you see something like that come up, or even a photograph flash across your screen, you're taken back to the place where you actually were, where nobody knows you were, and nobody knows you were struggling like that. Nobody knows you had been 3 days blackout in that picture,
right.
but you had been. And so it's painful. I don't blame you for not going back to look at that stuff and the dates and things like that. Like I know sober people that don't share their date at all. It's some of these things are
Mhm.
really, really personal. Bad shit happens. And sometimes when you know someone's sober date, you can Google it and then you know what
And
happened and also not.
right.
So I think there are lots of reasons that people guard those dates. Some people just don't even know them. I know mine, but I
Mhm.
didn't celebrate it. I mean, I knew when I was a year sober, and then I
Right.
knew, like, but I don't think I didn't really openly celebrate it until I was 9 years sober. And I think my dad had just died. I came out with No Wine in the Carpool Line right like a year after my dad died, and came out with a sober date then. So yeah, I wasn't really wedded to mine either.
I love that. So did you and your mom, is your mom still alive?
She is, yeah.
Have you guys' relationship gotten any better or no?
No, we
No.
haven't spoken in years. I wish her the best and I love
Mhm.
her. And I'm grateful for, the mother that she was to me. And we're just going to need to love each other separately, probably for the rest of our lives. I am not able to work through some stuff. I haven't been so far.
Yeah.
And God willing, I will get there. God willing, I will get there because I love her very much and I miss her. Um, but no, not right now.
Has she ever like tried to apologize or tried to work things out with you? Like, what does
No.
that look
In
like?
fact,
Okay.
the ending of the relationship was when I attempted to have a conversation about some of the things that I had questions about. And I was pregnant with one of my boys at the time, so I may have been more emotional than I wish
Yeah.
I had been. But these were questions that I had been needing to ask for many years. Um, and it wasn't received well. I didn't deliver it well. Um, and
Yeah.
and then we I decided that I just could never fucking re-engage.
Yeah.
There's too much pain right now. And I hope that
Yeah.
I change my mind. I really do. I hope that I'm able to work through some of this and talk to her again, and see her again because she's an old woman.
Right.
Um, and really like to fix things at some point, but I don't know, honestly, Shayna, if that's realistic, and I don't want it badly enough to facilitate it for myself. So there's the thing. It's
Right.
just like recovering from alcoholism. I tried for years to recover from that, but did I? Did I? Did I
Right.
wanted to be sober, but I didn't want to do what was necessary to do it, which was
The
gut
work.
wrenching work that took the things that I loved the most away from me for a period of time and then exposed who I was to myself for the first time. It was really traumatic and hard. You know this. You had to do it. And anybody who's sober knows this. It's so hard, and
Really
that's how I
hard.
kind of feel like with some of the relationships that don't end up surviving is, I did the work for that, but I don't know that I have more in me to do this again for anything else. That's why I say I can never drink again or like do drugs, because I don't have another recovery in me, because this one almost killed me. Like literally,
No,
probably the next
I
day.
agree 100%. I also was like, I was always like a single struggling mom. I was always like a shit show, depressed, anxious, all of that. And like, we've built so much together. Like, me owning a home is like off the charts crazy. Like, I can't even like explain it to you. So when I like think about it, I'm like, I would never, I just couldn't imagine going back to laying in my bed throwing up in Walmart bags for days. Like, I just can't do it. Could
Yeah.
never.
Yeah. I identify with that too. Same thing. I would do the same thing. Couldn't make it to the bathroom, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's a transformation that's epic.
It is. So your kids, what is your relationship with your kids now who lived with their dad? Do they come to see you? Do they live with you now? What is
Oh
that?
yeah, we had joint custody very shortly after. That custody battle lasted about 18 months.
Mhm.
And Matt and I were fortunate enough to buy a house just outside of Kansas City, right
Mhm.
next to. So we did. We shared custody growing up. The oldest is 19 now. I mean, she was 7 when they were really little. And I was
Mhm.
a closet alcoholic. They didn't see much of it. You know what I mean? And my baby, my now 15-year-old, he was 2. So they just don't remember much of it, I don't think, or much that they've shared other than normal family, a divorced
Mhm.
family where mom would come. And it was probably a year and a half where I would go to see them on weekends rather than us living in the
Mhm.
same house, because I was still in St. Louis with Matt and couldn't move there yet. And so as soon
Right.
as Matt was able to, we did. That's why we live here, is we followed my children to Kansas City and we raise our family here and share joint custody of our children, and have
I
for
love
the
that.
past 10 years. So yeah, they grew up, all of our kids. Matt didn't have any children and had never been married before. But my older 3 and the 2 that Matt and I have had all grew up together in the same house. And yeah, we don't, half
That.
siblings isn't a term that we use.
Mhm.
Yeah. So yeah, no, everybody's together. Praise God. And, that was my whole goal the whole time. I didn't know that Matt and I would have any more children. But all I wanted really, I think the beginning of getting sober was all I wanted
Was your
were
kids?
was my kids, Sumner, Witten, and Woods. And they were so little when I was going through it that when I was in rehab, Woods was 2 when I was in rehab. It was 5 and Sumner was 7. And they didn't really know. And it was 3 months gone, and they would get the letters from me and things. So it was almost like I was on a business trip, which is what we told them, is that mom was on a business trip, because dad used to go on business trips all the time. Their
Right.
dad did. And so we just kind of switched roles. And so luckily their dad protected them a great deal from what was actually going on with me. My parents protected them a great deal from it. They were really fortunate in how guarded they were, and honestly how much I guarded them. I was drinking alone in
Mhm.
closets, bitch. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was killing myself by myself. It affected them
Yeah.
horribly, but it wasn't something that they were witnessing, like at the dinner table or mom falling down the stairs in front of them, things like that. All of that was happening, but they didn't see it. And mine, like I said, was fast and furious. It was probably 18 months of nightmare. Mine didn't come on until later in life, but
Right.
it it changed the course of my life dramatically, and in a way that I wouldn't ever wish on anybody. My God.
Yeah, it's horrible. And I have my third daughter is 9, so she's much younger than my other 2. And we were actually just talking about it like a few weeks ago, and I said something because I'm so used to talking to all my kids about it now, right? Because my other kids witnessed it. And I said something, and she was like, "No, I have no idea why you do that." And I was like, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, like I know that you don't drink alcohol, but I don't remember you ever drinking alcohol." And I was like,
Yeah.
"What?" She was 5. Like, I really stopped and think about it, and I'm like, when I stopped, she was 5, and she remembered the last incident that I had, which I wasn't always crazy when I drank, but there was definitely a few times, and she remembered that incident, but like not that it was about drinking or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I was drinking and that was why I acted that way, right?
Wow, how wild that she didn't know. Isn't it funny that we would like assume that they would know stuff and they don't?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then I felt like I had to explain to her because it actually, even my 18-year-old who was in the car with me when it happened, I wasn't driving, she was driving, but even she was like, that was actually the one thing that I will always remember and that did scare me, right? So I had to tell my daughter, my younger daughter, that hey, like that wasn't like a, I mean, it was a me thing, but I was not sober, and that is why I don't drink. That is part of why I don't drink, is how I eventually ended up always acting, right?
right.
So yeah, but that was weird to have that conversation, and she was like, "Yeah, what? No, like I thought you've always not drank." I
Isn't
was
that
like,
nice?
"Okay, okay, I
Yeah,
love that." And like
yeah,
she has such a different life, right? Like not a bunch of screaming and yelling and all this stuff that was going on like when I was married before, and I don't know, she's just like, "Can I have a toy?" That's it, right? That's her only care in the world. "What are we
right.
eating and can I have a toy?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"What?"
What kids are supposed to worry about. That's it.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
crazy. And it does feel good. It gives you a little bit of a chance, like for me at least, I think to like make up for things, to do things differently than
Um, yeah, for me, I spent so much time pretending that my normal now is what I was pretending before because I knew
right.
what to do. So for me, it's the same but different because I was doing all of that, but I wanted to die at the same time. And it was all
Right.
with a raging hangover or with something in my cup. You know what I
And
mean?
you were kind of you were functioning,
I was
basically.
functioning,
Yeah.
but yeah. So this time around with my boys, with my 10-year-old boy and my 2-year-old boy, oh, and Woods, Witten, Whalen, and Macklin obviously could never remember. But I do see a difference in my parenting totally in the last 11 years than what it was before because now I'm actually like I'm not pretending to be really into what we're doing. I'm actually into
Present, like you're present.
yeah, right, right. So there's a huge difference there. And for me to say and pretend that my children didn't notice or know that mom was pretending is bullshit because it's in the vibe. I mean, even if I was really there and was doing the things and things like that, like I said I was, and I know
Mhm.
that I was, the vibe was different because now I'm actually enjoying it and I'm actually so grateful. And like you said, there's a gratitude that I have now for the
Yeah.
younger boys that I didn't have before because when your husband takes them away from you and you realize, oh my God, someone can take them from me. But not just that, the ache, the true primal ache that you feel in your bones for those children.
There's something about being a mom that people just don't get.
Every moment now with them sober is different than it was 11 years ago because you appreciate it. This is going to sound weird, but from an animalistic primal standpoint, from
100%.
your soul, it's like you are made with them and they're with you, and it's a different way now because you know that you can't ever be separated from them again and you won't allow it to happen from any of them. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think parenting for me now, even though it didn't look differently from the outside, it's completely different now.
Right, I agree. So, what's your favorite thing about sobriety? And this will be my last question. But what is the best parts?
Oh, 100%. It's this. I'll go for this. My favorite part about sobriety is actually all about me. And my favorite part is the part that I had never had in my whole life. And that is, I might have looked confident from the outside, like the lacrosse player or the runner or the cool girl standing next to the other cool girl. And all of it was a front. Let me just be real. I had fun and I was happy and I had wonderful friends and I still do and all of that and all of that. But I wasn't able to live authentically all of the time. And sobriety has given me total self-confidence to know that whatever it is that I feel and I need to do, I can trust that because I'm doing it with a sound heart, with a sound mind, and I'm not doing things impulsively. I'm sleeping on them, sometimes for days, sometimes for weeks at a time before I make these decisions. And that's something I was never able to do before. So sobriety has given me a freedom that I had never had. And that's the freedom to completely trust myself. Like I'm my own boss now. That's not, I'm not saying I work for myself, but like my mind is my own now. I don't have to rely on feedback from other people to tell me how well I'm doing or how fucked up I am. I'm completely confident in who I am, what I do, what I say, and what I represent. And that's something I never would have said before.
I love that. And you're so amazing. I'm so glad I got to have you today. I have to point out something you said, though, even though I said that was it. How you just said, I'm not doing everything just spontaneously. I just want to point out that people that have problems with alcohol, drugs, whatever it is,
Yeah.
that is spot on. What it is that whatever's coming to your head is done. It's almost done before it's even completely thought. So like when you
Yeah.
say, don't go take that drink, you're like, already got the drink in your hand and
It's
down your
done.
throat, right? Spontaneous is like an understatement for how it feels to
Yeah.
live in an alcoholic or even like a gray area drinker's mind, right? Like I know everybody doesn't use the same words. I use alcoholic, so
Yeah. Yeah. Same, same.
whatever it is, but that spontaneousness is just like unexplainable. How
It
I've
is.
already done it before it even completely.
Me too, Shayna.
I love that. And now I love that about myself because it's a little, that's why we say controlled chaos, because I'm still a shit show. It's just a little more controlled.
Yeah, we're just not trying to kill people or ourselves this time.
Right. I'm just a little more controlled and a little more, the stuff that I do is very more, it's better, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's just better.
it's
It's
thought
control.
out, it's whatever. But that determination that comes from being an alcoholic, it comes into your life when you're sober, right? Like that's how you got this
Majorly.
platform and grew it, became an author, all of that, right?
Right.
It's kind of a blessing and a curse, right?
Oh man, I think so too. I think about that all the time. It's both. I think about sometimes if you could go back and decide this wasn't going to be your path, you never have to be an alcoholic, would you take a different way? I don't know.
I don't think I would. I don't think I would have even thought it possible to like build my own business or like be happily married or have a home. I just never had any confidence in me and like
Yeah,
the things that I wasn't strong about, like how do you build a business? Who knows? I'm super ADD. I would have never. And I just was like, what? Like if I could get sober, I can do whatever I want. And I just did
exactly.
it.
That's what it is.
Just
Yeah.
did it. Like I don't think I would have anything like I have now or been able to help people like I do now without that. But would I want to go through it again? No.
No, yeah, I wouldn't want to go through
Am
it
I
again.
glad
I have
it's
that sometimes.
done?
Me too. Me too. I hope that's the hardest it'll ever be.
I do too. But I'm so thankful you came. This was such a good time and such a good story. So
Oh my
thank you
gosh,
so
Shayna, me
much.
too. I just love chatting with you. I need to get you on my live soon.
Yes, I'm
I'm
going to
gonna
shut
send
this
you
up.
some.